Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are looking at this. This is a live recording from a webinar that we are doing on cybersecurity for micro enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises, specifically in the domain of industrial developments manufacturing. We do this here under the auspices of the CYSSME project. CYSSME is a European activity which is supporting European SMEs, specifically in trying to get their maturity on cybersecurity further improved. This is the second of the webinars, and we focus today on this specific domain of industrial automation and industry, because it's something that we have been finding that is lagging a little bit behind when it comes to cybersecurity and maturity in many different aspects. So to give a short perspective on CYSSME and what it is that we do, a very short introduction about that. And, let me share here my screen in order to do that properly. There's also another webinar that goes a little bit more in depth on this. But in essence, CYSSME is an activity where 12 partners are supporting the further improvement of companies in Europe, taking the assumption that there's already something in terms of cybersecurity available, and where we will take that expertise and see how we can further improve it. We would do that on the basis of, in the first place, advisory, but not only, we also will try to identify what is available today, what you have in terms of cybersecurity solutions, but also to understand what types of assets that need to be protected, both in terms of persons, in terms of systems, and in terms of applications. And then based upon that, we will try to understand how we can, on the basis of existing standards and existing technologies, see to further prevent the environment in terms of making sure that it's protected from cybersecurity incidents. So that in essence is what CYSSME is doing. We see cybersecurity as a process where there's different steps to be taken. It's definitely not all about technology. We would like to have this interaction. And therefore also these webinars that we organize is to show that we are working together with users, with companies that have their specific needs and requirements, because we do see that an SME is just a collection, of course, of companies, small and medium-sized companies, but every company is unique and has individual needs and requirements, and that's why the interaction is so very much necessary. The aim for us is to help you mature. It's not really to get to a specific level of, okay, this is what that you have to be fully cybersecure. That's not the objective. We want to make sure that there's a maturity improvement happening. So we want to help you grow your business, and so making also sure that cybersecurity is alongside that business growth. We provide some end goals where we are looking towards not only cybersecurity the systems, but also helping your teams in further improving. And it's not that we deliver a specific set of technologies and then we leave it like this. No, it's really also to help you understanding what technologies are about and mentoring you to the point that you can manage this yourself within your organization. And then finally, it's also there to help you comply to some maybe existing cybersecurity requirements when it comes to legal necessities or future ones. So with these partners, we do that today. So that's 12 partners spread around Europe. And today, one of the partners that is present here is Historion, next to ourselves from LSEG. And so what we will be doing is helping you with the first level of assessments, where we have a tool which is called CYSSME assessment that can help you understand and also identify on what grade you are. And then from there, we can define a baseline and then see which additional requirements are needed. Those could be both on the existing infrastructure, like, for instance, the network that you already have or the endpoints that you already have. or it could go to towards your own organization working towards different suppliers. So where we could help you assessing third parties, or where we could help you getting to a level of compliance management. And then a fourth level in this case, it's also focusing on the industrial components. So it's not only about the administrative cybersecurity part, but also about the industrial components of it. And that's where we will be focusing slightly more on. We already have a number of use cases that we have been working on doing this. And like we mentioned also in the previous webinar, in this case, for instance, a company which is building products and technologies that has their own manufacturing environment, but it's also providing a piece of technology and software for other manufacturing companies to be used. So here we are looking specifically into how can we secure not only the product that they're developing, how can we also help them helping their customers being more cyber secure. And then finally, it's of course making sure that internally within the organization, there's also cybersecurity maturity improvements happening, specifically in, for instance, in the development teams. So putting it specific, here we will be focusing on the industrial area, where CYSSME will be providing solutions, services, and advisory. And to some extent, that can be offered as in free of charge. But in most cases, it will be partially being offered free of charge, and partially solutions will be need to be put in place, where we might also need external solutions that need to be facilitated. So as a short overview of what CYSSME will be able to provide, we'll head into an interaction. And our today's guest is Vincent Haring from Torion. Torion, a cybersecurity specialist already for the last decade, that has been helping many different companies in this environment as well. And Vincent in particular has been working in the industrial space, helping manufacturing companies or other industrial entities getting their first steps. So Vincent, good morning. It still is in our case. Welcome in any case. Welcome to this CYSSME webinar. Maybe give a little bit of your background and also some of the highlights of what you've seen in your work life when it comes to cybersecurity for industrial environments.
Hi, so good morning to you too. My experience, I think I'm spanning also more than a decade in the market. But in different roles, I've started out as a programmer for smart devices, smart metering, amongst others. And I've had a lot of clients who had process industry, so really ongoing and even discrete manufacturing. So a lot of challenges because they're really fond or experienced in managing HSE risks, so everything relating to safety and production. But we see less on cybersecurity maturity, and we see a lot of discussions happening with the IT teams if they are already focusing on cybersecurity. So the more mature companies, we see that there's still some gap. It's not always a clash or a fight, but we see most often that still there is a gap on they just don't know where the priorities should be on cybersecurity, or they're just not handling it yet. And that goes for the production lines themselves, so integrators and other parties setting up the process lines, but also for smart products. We see a lot of advertising now for smart products and predictive maintenance and AI-based maintenance and stuff like that. So it's really good to see those evolutions, but we see cybersecurity under it is still lacking. So how do you get that smart data back towards your company in a safe way? How is it reliable to do some calculations on when maintenance should best be scheduled, stuff like that? We see that there's still a lot not being considered on cybersecurity. So that's in short. So I lost my audio. Or you on mute?
No, so I think that's thanks for that overview already and that introduction. I think it puts things very nicely into perspective. And the two aspects of any manufacturing company that is basically producing things that has machines in their production floor, on the work floor. And in some cases, indeed, companies that are producing also those smart products that also need to be more cyber secured, or those production companies that are installing those smart products. But maybe to get things into the right perspective, Vincent, why would you consider that cybersecurity is also important for those operating companies, for any production company, actually?
Well, it's basically just another risk to manage. It's not really, well, we can handle it as a separate domain because it has its particularities. But for me, it's just part of running a business where you also taking out insurance, for example, against fire. That's just something you have to do, and that is related to you doing some activities. For me, cybersecurity is even such also a part of your daily activity. So the way you're handling personal data, for example, that was the big bang we had with GDPR. The same goes now for processing installations, devices, anything going for IT materials. You will need to manage that risk of it going down because more and more we rely on those systems. So you will have to manage the risk of those systems not functioning or not functioning correctly. And if you have a company that's doing 80% of its revenue on producing machines or any other stuff, you have a large risk there. If it doesn't go according to plan, how do you keep your business running? Can you go somewhere else? Can you just mitigate a lot of stuff and then work preventively? Or are you really well equipped to handle any incidents? Because we see with production floors, they're used to handling incidents. You always have a machine that halts, you have unforeseen downtime, you have stuff that breaks. We see that all the time. So why not consider cybersecurity as just a part of your operating environment that could also break or cause a downtime or any other abnormality?
Okay, so right, very much understood. Now, many of the colleagues in the industry will now say, yes, okay, but we have a firewall. So isn't that sufficient then?
I would be very happy that they already have a firewall. we still see companies that don't have a firewall, but sometimes it's hard to know how much should I invest and where. So if you have a firewall, it's already a great start because it's better than nothing. But it's most often it's not enough. But it's really hard to make the decision on what else should you buy then, because if you look to the vendor space, they all have magnificent products, and rightfully so. They make a lot of marketing fuss about it, that their product is the next best thing. But what we tend to focus on is why buy that specific type of product. For example, now we always see the holy trinity of basic security stuff, and that's the firewalling, the EDR, so everything on endpoints as anti-malware and response on endpoints, and MFA, so multifactor authentication. Those are the holy trinity of basic security requirements. These are things that you should not discuss about. You should have them.
Okay,
If you
so
don't have them, it might already be a big problem.
let's dig a bit deeper there. So, okay, the firewall, just in short, what does the firewall do in this case?
So if you have a firewall, you can really take it literally. It holds your company from any fire coming from then the public internet. So it shields your network from other locations. So if you have a production plant, for example, you put on a firewall on your network, it makes that nobody from outside your company should be able to access your network if you don't want it, because you can configure a firewall to have a lot of holes, and then it's just passing network packets. It's really not protecting anything. But the main goal of a firewall is filtering your network traffic.
Yeah,
Most new firewalls can also filter outgoing traffic. So if you have a attack from inside your company, filtering data to other countries or interested parties, it should also pick up on that. So if you have some data leakage and stuff like that.
So in essence, what you're saying is a firewall is like the front door of the production. So you want to make sure that nobody enters in unless you really know about it. And on the other hand as well, you don't want anything to go out unless you really want it to. So you keep basically the keys on the lock. Right?
It's a balancing exercise of configuring it well enough that it holds off anything you don't want to come in, but also it should remain functional. So it's always a balance of if you compare it to a front door, most front doors are locked. But if you always open the lock from 8 to 4, for example, then you might have a problem of someone just walking in that time frame. So you really need to be tending to that configuration. If you put new stuff in your company, you will have to alter those configurations. So it's not a set and forget device. So you really need to actively check if everything's still okay.
Okay, so we have a firewall, but it probably best is to assess whether it's still functioning properly in the situation that we are in right now.
Correct.
Because yeah, I think that's probably very valid, because most of the companies that we know of, if they have a firewall, indeed, as you say, on their production floor, in addition, it might be that firewall was acquired a couple of years ago, and since then nobody looked at it or touched it anymore. So it is absolutely necessary to revisit that again on a regular basis to make sure that there's updates being done on the new sets of requirements of the business in this case.
Yeah, and there are always changes as well. If they put in a new production line, not all suppliers are very detailed about the specifications. So they might say, yeah, just open a full range of a network because we need to be able to ping back to the supplier of the machines to provide some functioning data or some maintenance data. If they put those brackets too wide, in fact, you're creating new holes in that firewall. These are things you need to be checking as well, or you made some configuration for a line that is not in your company anymore. It should be deleted. And we see over time that configuration grows and grows, and people just forget after 3 years that you have put that configuration in. Maybe something temporary as well. We see a lot of network problems. The first things they do is disable the firewall and see if the problem persists. Yeah, those are steps then you need to roll back as well, and then don't forget about it.
You mentioned also EDR. What is that type of beast, and what does it do, and why do we need it? And why do we need it in an industrial environment?
Well, it's actually an evolution of the classic anti-malware solutions. So we've had antivirus, anti-malware solutions, which are just working like a dictionary. The supplier of the software makes a large list of these softwares are not trustworthy. If you see one, delete one or flag it to the user. The EDRs are actually an evolution of that kind of software where they said, yeah, if I put out a piece of malware and you recognize it based on its shape, let's put it that way, or its number, if I just change the number every time I send out malware, your list keeps growing exponentially and you can't fight off all those malwares. So suppliers of the software said, let's change it and check the behavior of the software. So I'm not only checking the lists, which I know is malicious. I also check, is this software trying to access some data it shouldn't be? I'll raise a flag of, yeah, you installed some basic application, but it's filtering all your data from your hard disk, is accessing specific locations that are very doubtfully needed. And that's actually the evolution. And the DR stands for detection and response. So it's also responding to those threats. You can configure it if something is at the least bit untrustworthy. Okay, block it or filter it throughout the network. So it can span a lot of devices together. If, for example, you, Ulrich, you have a specific software on your system that doesn't seem trustworthy, it propagates to all the other devices, like, watch out, I have seen a software that is not trustworthy. If you see it, block it also. So it's a good evolution where we target more the result of malware and not the specific malware on itself.
Okay. And then there was a third component. So, okay, we need malware protection because, of course, we have those systems running. And then before we get into the third system, some of my industrial machines are CNC machines, are basically doing monitoring of processes. I don't even know whether there are even machines that need something like an EDR on them. I do know that in some cases they are running on a Windows environment, and because I can see that when the device starts up, and I see a Microsoft logo, but I cannot actually touch those systems. So what do I do there?
Well, that's the main problem of OT devices. There are actually two facets to that, and first one is their age. So if you have an embedded device, you just mentioned CNC machines, those tend to work for quite some years, hopefully for you. There are some production lines with embedded systems that last more than 20 years. So these are IT-based machines. So we had versions of Windows embedded, which are really specific for machinery, but most I have seen are based on just normal Windows operating systems, albeit sometimes slimmed down of their functionality, but it's still a basic Windows version. Most of them you can touch, but in a restricted way. So if the machine belongs to the supplier, you need to double check with the supplier if you're allowed to install software on it, if it's your property, because sometimes you buy a system or you lease it and then it's not your property. So you need to be very careful of what you do on that device, because you might void your warranty or other contracts. But most of them are allowed to be controlled by an administrator that is from your company. So you can install your own software on it, but it comes with a downside that sometimes they do not guarantee the correct functioning of the software anymore. I've had this discussion with a large manufacturer where they said, yeah, you can install, for example, the GPOs, which is a configuration baseline of the Windows devices. We can do that centrally, but then we cannot guarantee you the correct functioning of our software, because we don't know if you shut off some settings, what the impact will be down the line for DMS or SCADA systems. So there it is allowed to install, but it's a risk. If your EDR blocks some specific software that is needed for the supplier, then it will block your machine from working properly. So that might cause an issue in your production line. Then mostly we refer to what we call backup controls or mitigating controls, where we say, okay, if the machine is untouchable by by way of speaking, then we just build a wall around it. And that means either we isolate the machine so it runs on its own, it has no network connection, no matter what. Sometimes that's still feasible, but in most companies, the machines need to be connected because they need to report back to a ERP system or a MES system. So they need to be connected. In that case, we try to build a networked wall. So we already covered the firewall. Sometimes we see that we can build a firewall just for one machine. So it's really isolated and we control all traffic that goes in and out. So that means the machine is still, well, it has a tiny risk of being compromised still, but even if it's compromised, then we will see it based on the network traffic it puts out. So there are some mitigations you can do. Preferred way is always anti-malware, but it covers only malware. If those things are not available, same goes for other cybersecurity controls as well. If you cannot cover it with one specific device or software, then we look to other options which might compensate for it. I hope that's a bit clear.
It's very much clear, absolutely. So then the third system that you're referring to, that's absolutely needed. Which was that? Do you remind us?
It was the MFA, so the multifactor authentication.
Yes. So what's that about?
So that's the typical hacker's approach is the way of least resistance, and that tends to be people. We've all had or heard about phishing links. So we just send out millions and millions of emails hoping someone will click the button. And the problem is once you click the button, you can execute stuff on your work machine as you being a user. So that means if I can compromise your account, I can act as you. So that means if I have your username and password, I can log in from anywhere if I have obtained it. So if I'm an attacker based in some other country, I have your credentials, I can log in. And what we do with MFA is actually an extra factor, it's multifactor. So password is one factor that proves that you are exactly you. And a multifactor is more than once. So if you obtain a password, if I have MFA enabled, that means I still get a text message or a phone call or any other means of verification. So if your attacker tries to log in, he uses your password and then he gets a prompt. Yeah, just share your PIN code you just received on your text message. But if your attacker has no access to your cell phone, they cannot log in. So it's really important to have that second or even third stage. If you have really sensitive accounts, you can do more than 2 stages. It's sometimes also called 2FA for that means. So it really has authentication stages. So not anyone could log in if they obtain one of those factors, which are typically easy, like passwords, PIN codes. There are lots of leaked password lists or 1, 2, 3, 4 as a PIN code. You can sometimes just guess passwords or PIN codes. So it's really important to have those authentication methods spread out over more than one channel.
So all of these things seem to be very difficult things that a company in the production space would need to learn about. Is that really necessary, and how can we help them doing better in that space, and how can we actually know whether they need something of a kind? What's your grip on this, and how have you been doing this over the last couple of years?
The easy answer is you just need to do it, but it's really hard to do because the OT environments are just so complex. So as I just said, you have a lot of restrictions on machines need to keep running. You cannot touch some devices. Some devices are very old and dangerous to work with. So there are a lot of restrictions. And what we see is if you have to make decisions, if we, for example, say, could you deploy an EDR software on this environment? The answer always is it depends on what scope of the environment, what timing. So the answer to the it depends answer is actually we push towards scenarios on what is important for you to protect, because the Holy Trinity is easy. That's stuff that just needs to be there. But if you cannot put it there, what else can you do? And why should you care about it? For example, if you have a process manufacturing, which is really relying on any chemical process or any other processes, you cannot have any downtime or you lose a production line or even a whole batch of production where a machine producer, for example, if they're at a standstill, they can just resume operations if they have a standstill. So there's a risk profile, we call it like that. It's really on what is important to your company. Can you live with, for example, 10% scrap because of some incident? If some machine stops functioning, you lose a press mold pressure, you lose some electronics soldering capacity. you just scrap the whole line, you start anew, and you're gone. If you have some downtime, how long can you tolerate it? Can you tolerate a production stop for 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month? So really make a profile of your company and know what is important to you. And it might seem very trivial to do that, but if you put your CEO, your CFO, and your production responsible together in one room and you ask them what the most important thing for them is to keep running, most often we see we have 3 different answers. The CFO will worry about cash flow. The operations director will worry about the operational efficiency time, so the uptime of production. And your CEO might be more on reputation, for example, worried about reputational damage. So you each have to balance your priorities and then make decisions on your cybersecurity approach based on those profiles. If you don't worry about downtime, there's no need to be investing in tools and services that eliminate downtime or reduce the downtime because you say we don't worry about it. We worry about the accuracy of our production. Then you need to worry about security measures that hold off any attacks that could impact, for example, your CNC precision of milling. So these are profiles you really need to start, and the most easy approach we have for that is playing the what if game. You just start every question with what if. What if our first machine that sets devices on a conveyor belt, what if it goes down? What if it malfunctions? So it keeps working, but it's not going where you need it to be. What if some attack or some fire happens? What if we have a fire in the production plant? Can we move all our operations to another site? Can we move part of that process? So that's then what we call in cybersecurity world the business continuity planning and disaster recovery planning. So you just need to think about it. For an SME, those are not exercises of months and months of paperwork. It's just sitting together and really checking with everyone that is involved. If we need to recover from a incident that wiped out the whole production, how will we start it? What do we need as a first step to be rebuilt? Is it a network connection, or is it just the machines that need to be booted and up and running? Can we still control them manually, or do we need the ERP system or the production planning system to really give instructions and set points to the machines? These are scenarios you need to build out, and don't worry about the complexity. It can be very simple when you start, and then start building new scenarios over time.
Right. I think that's probably a good topic for a next webinar, is to dive in a little bit into on how to do risk management and how to start doing that, and then how to get to discovering some ways to approach it. A final question to you, Vincent, before we take off here. Cybersecurity, it's not really my problem. I've never seen any issue as a production company. How do I even know that that there might be anything happening? I'm pretty much sure that nothing is there. And so, in essence, there's 5 people working in my company. We don't really have any major financial gains or whatever. So why would I be basically a potential victim for cybersecurity?
Well, first of all, your sentence is not complete. So if you say we haven't seen anything, the word missing at the end is yet. We haven't seen anything yet. And if you're not looking, probably you won't see anything. Chances of you getting hacked are increasing just if we correlate the number of attacks. Someday you will get hacked or attacked or impacted some way. If it's a big hack or a small hack, I can't tell you, but you should worry about that. If you're not worried about the scale of the impact because you're a small company with 4 to 5 employees, know that your clients and your suppliers will worry. If you're a 5-person SME delivering services to 200 FTE companies, they will start to worry, especially with new legislation coming up, forcing them to worry about it. you are in their supply chain. They will impose requirements to you. You will need to demonstrate that you are handling incidents in a structured way, that you are handling personal data in a structured and feasible way. So it needs to be, well, your cybersecurity actions need to be sized to your SME. So if you have a turnover of 2 million a year, we do not expect you to invest 1 million. But if you have a 5-person SME doing a turnover of 100 million, then you have more capacity to invest, and it's expected from you that you invest a lot more as well. So it needs to be reasonable, I think the exact wording is. But I cannot imagine any SME which has no digital systems where they wouldn't be impacted if any issue would arise. So it's only a matter of time and making good decisions.
Okay. So final words from my side. I thank you very much, Vincent, to get some clarification here on different perspectives, but also on the Holy Trinity and the baseline security that is typically required, to get some insights on the risk management perspective and why, in any case, as a company, you should be considering that cybersecurity needs to be part of your day-to-day business. So as part of CYSSME, what we can do is we can help you making the assessments of those initial risks, help you providing some guidance in where you should be first making either investments in or basically using CYSSME solutions and tools to help you taking those first steps. We have solutions that could act as firewalls or to provide this level of EDR, XDR, and even multifactor authentication, so providing you the Holy Trinity. But we can also help figuring out whether there might already be some form of cyber incident that has happened into your systems. So that's why we as CYSSME are providing, thanks to the European Commission, and a mechanism that is able there to help you making those first steps and to help you improving your cybersecurity in that sense. So reach out to us and apply for assistance from CYSSME, and then experts like Vincent will be able to get in touch with you and see and help you through this challenging domain. So for the next session, we will likely get a little bit further into how to do the risk assessment and the typical questions that you would need to ask specifically in an operational or industrial setting in any case. Thank you, and see you next time.